Do you believe children under 16 should watch Slaughterhouse footage to see the truth, or should we explain it to them instead?
Hi, it's Emily from Bite Size Vegan, and welcome to another Vegan Nugget. Within the world of vegan activism and education, there exists ample debate about which methods, individuals, and tactics are the most effective, and which are ineffective or even damaging. One of the most divisive issues is the use of graphic footage and imagery. Arguments in opposition include: it reduces the reach of the message as most people avoid unpleasant content, it makes people less receptive to hearing about veganism, it's a cheap shock tactic when a grounded approach would yield better results, it's a further form of exploiting the animals themselves, etc. Arguments in favor include: most people have to see to truly believe, there's power in exposing the truth, especially when it's deliberately and systematically hidden, the animals deserve to have their stories told, consumers deserve to know the truth about what they're paying others to do, and what they're putting in their bodies and feeding to their children, etc. This already controversial debate is profoundly intensified when one adds in the question of showing graphic content to children. This little powder keg of an inquiry was one of the questions I received during my back-to-back live Q&A sessions on Facebook and YouTube. If you missed either of the Q&A sessions, links to those videos are in the description below. So I thought I'd share my response from the live stream, followed by some additional thoughts on the subject.
Honestly, a lot of it depends on the child and the family and the parent. I mean, different children have different sensibilities and different sensitivities, and also different levels of maturity, just depending. So, I mean, you're going to know your kid better than anyone else can. So for some, it might be something that is important to them, or that would be helpful for them. You know, for me, as a kid, I would have liked to have seen that. I always say I came out of the womb like 35. It's just always been very, serious child. I was never like a, ooh, kid, you know. I didn't have, the carefree days of my youth. Anyways, so I think it really, really depends on the child. I don't think it's something that should be done by default. I think there are ways to explain these things to kids without graphic imagery, which is what I do in my kids' videos. However, I am definitely one who thinks graphic footage is important, and it has incredible value, and it has its place. I still use it very discerningly, and there's a lot of times I could use it, and probably the videos would perform even better because it's that shock tactic type of thing, but I only do it if I really feel like it's going to serve the content effectively and that it's purposeful. But it is important because of the fact that we work so hard, humanity, to hide the reality of what goes on with animals and what happens to them. So there's an incredible value to letting those animals have their stories told, because they deserve that. They deserve someone to at least bear witness. And for me personally, I always think if they have to live through that and they have to die by that, the very least I can do is bear witness to it. So I think it's incredibly important, and I do think there's value to showing young people the truth. I would never sugarcoat for kids, and I say that in my videos for them. You know, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to show you anything scary, but I am going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to lie to you. So I think as far as the actual footage, that would probably be up to the parents.
One of the main reasons I started making vegan videos for kids was how much I wish I'd had access to this information when I was younger. And while I do not show anything graphic in those videos, I am very passionate about never talking down to children and adolescents. Kids are incredibly intelligent and very often underestimated or dismissed by us adults. I remember what that feels like, and I vowed as a kid to never forget what it was like being discounted. This doesn't mean that my content for children is identical to videos crafted with a more adult demographic in mind. There is a very vital difference between pandering and delivering a message suitable to one's intended audience. This is a concept I covered in depth in my speech, A Wake-Up Call for Vegans, which you can see linked here in the sidebar and below. Additionally, I plan on further exploring the graphic footage debate as a whole in another dedicated video, but for now I wanted to touch on a couple important points. As with many controversial topics, there exist far more gray areas than black and white absolutes. And while we humans have an affinity for labeling things one way or another, the effectiveness and appropriateness of graphic imagery depends on an endless array of variables. This touches on one of the most difficult aspects of what I do with Bite Size Vegan, attempting to simplify very complex concepts and arguments without reducing them to a one-dimensional all-or-nothing message. For example, in my A Wake Up Call for Vegan speech, I stated well into the talk that if we want the world to confront the truth, we must do the same, no matter how daunting. Nothing we can experience will ever equal what the animals are experiencing. And they don't have the convenience of insulation. They deserve us at the very least to bear witness. Yes, we already know, or we think we do. But if we, the ones who claim to feel their pain, refuse to look, how do we expect the rest of the world to do it? I have received feedback from a number of viewers who have interpreted this as meaning that all vegans should subject themselves to traumatizing images and footage constantly. Of course, the very next line in the speech was, "This isn't about sitting and watching hours of brutal footage that too can be circular, it's not productive. It's not about berating ourselves or lamenting the impossibility of everything, but we make a grave error when we fail to ourselves stay connected to the truth." I also went into great detail about one of the times in which I chose not to use graphic footage despite considerable availability. At the same time, I have utilized graphic footage within a number of my videos and speeches. I've also streamed live footage to my channel from slaughterhouses in the UK and the United States. I do the very best that I can to be as effective as possible with my activism, but I will never pretend to have all of the answers. The only way to stop the misinformation and disinformation that we hand down from generation to generation is to be open and honest with our children. This is one of the main themes in my spoken word piece, The Greatest Lie Ever Told. We teach what we know, which is what we were taught. The biggest lie ever bought in our own greatest trick is the sick conviction that we can kill in a way that is kind. A conscience, gnawing, uncertain certainty we solidify and smooth over and pass down the line, telling our kids it's okay, it's fine, from our generation to the next. Repetition breeds truth. So while there are plenty of times when, after much forethought, I've chosen not to show overtly graphic imagery, and I never do in my content for kids, if there's one thing that I'm certain of, it's that no matter your age, everyone deserves to know the truth. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with others to spark discussion. Subscribe to the channel and enable notifications for fresh vegan content every week. If you'd like to help support Bite Size Vegan's educational efforts, please see the support links below or the link in the sidebar. And a huge thank you to my Nugget Army of patrons for making this resource possible. Now go live vegan, share the truth, and I'll see you soon. So we sing our own praises back and forth to each other, teach our children about kindness. Now pass the turkey to your brother. Lessons in sharing carried out over corpses. Manners in the face of murder are key. Gotta teach the kiddies not to question the grim reality of what's on the very plate before them. Please just ignore them, these bodies and secretions. Call it meat and milk and ham and eggs. Focus on free range and cage free and grass fed because we're humane.